talk about mixed feelings, but let's talk about them. So Wolcen, what's the current stage of the game, and timestamps in the description. So, Wolcen, an action RPG which got me crazy hyped up at the start of the year when it released its beta, for a short while before reverting back to alpha. Right now it's back to open beta. They've been there for the past half a year roughly, before which was open alpha I just mentioned. So yeah, that's a tad confusing. Currently you can play up to Act 1, which equals roughly 6 hours of gameplay, after which you can continue leveling in randomized dungeons. Full disclosure though, I haven't explored that part of the game as I'm only interested in progressing through story mode, which by the way is the best part about Wolcen, but more on that later. So yeah, if I wanted randomized, infinitely scaling dungeons, I just go and play Diablo 3. I guess I should also mention a few key points about the game to the folks who haven't heard this title before. It's an action RPG, so you have this typical isometric view. It has a classless system where you can choose talents from a variety of categories such as Warlock, Rogue, Warmongers, and others that I don't even know how to pronounce or what the fuck they even mean. Basically, design your own class. There are some plans for apocalyptic forms, some endgame Ultra Super Saiyan kind of shit, but despite being mentioned and teased for years now, there seems to be zero progress on it right now. Maybe it's already done, just not released, I don't know. Apart from it, the other worth mentioning feature is its willpower and rage system. It works in an interesting way where all the skills require either rage or willpower. In order to gain rage, you need to be auto-attacking or, and this is where it gets interesting, spend willpower. In order to gain willpower, you need to either wait as the rage slowly decays into willpower or spend rage. Attacking with stave specifically also generates willpower. It's a fascinating mechanic, and if done right, it can do wonders for the game. But more on that later, because I kind of want to do this overview the other way around than it's done typically. I want to start with the cons, and if by the end of them you're still here for some reason, then we'll head to the pros. Oh, and before that, I just wanted to quickly address the big elephant in the room. Currently, I would not recommend buying this game. The only reason to justify buying it as it is if you truly want to support the developers, if you believe in their values and all that shit. But right now, it's just not worth it. There's not enough shit to do in the game. With that said, let's move on to the cons, which are as follow: clunky gameplay and clunky random shit, item stats, maybe item modifications, balance, by far the worst part of the game right now, and I guess devs' promises are pissing people off, but not sure if it's a proper topic for this video. Like, yeah, the game development is taking insanely longer than it has been promised, and then promised again, and then again, and then again, and so on and so forth, to the point where I just lost count. But they are making progress, they are issuing new content, they are making hotfixes, updates and whatnot, so just keep that in mind, and I won't go further into that. I'm here to discuss the game as it is. So leaving the promises aside, we have clunkiness, which I'd like to discuss in a couple of parts. The first part is kind of obvious. You still don't have attack animation cancel, which is absolutely fucking huge. It might not seem like a big deal, and for some skills it is completely whatever, but if you've been playing action RPGs for a while, you'll notice this immediately with just about all skills. With skill like this fireball-y thingy, it's simply horrific. Just watch me try to cancel it by moving to the side. It's just not happening. With other faster skills, it's not as big of a deal, but nevertheless it's just annoying. Now, I don't mind some skills locking me into an animation, that's fine. It can be a disadvantage to a powerful skill, but it's not the case, and therefore it's simply annoying. It's been at the back of my head throughout those 5 hours of gameplay I did, so yeah, it was clear as day that the game hasn't been finished or polished out yet. Now, the other part of clunkiness is kind of more whatever. It has mostly to do with aesthetics, cinematics, and the way everyone walks. I mean, just look at this. Who the fuck walks like that? Yeah, it's not a big deal, but it just triggers me so hard. I mean, come on. Now moving on, we have item stats. You have all sorts of mechanics, some ailment stuff, force shield, individual resistances, and it's just so confusing. Right off the bat, you start getting items with all these complicated mods, and it's extremely troublesome to figure out which item is the better one when comparing two. There didn't seem to be any progression in those stats. Again, right off the bat, you start getting all of these stats and you're just like, what the fuck? What do they even do? Which attacks are occult based? Which aren't? How do I figure it all out? I suppose this has something to do with picking words that aren't typically used in games. Like, you know how you have fire damage? Everyone instantly knows and understands what to look for. But in Wolcen you have shit like occult damage, force shield, ailments. If it's confusing me, a gaming veteran, I can't even imagine how it will feel for newer players. So yeah, my main problem with item stats is how confusing they are and that there's no progression, in a sense that they're all introduced to you immediately. Now with that said, let's get on to the big boy con of the game, balance. And this one is just horrible. Most of the game I was just smashing everything with a single button click, so that got boring real fast. The weird thing is, when I switched to staves and being more of a mage, suddenly I started struggling super hard. Now keep in mind, when I was playing I was giving zero fucks about playing optimally, so the talent points I picked, they were suboptimal at best. Maybe that had a role to play, I don't know. But there are other instances of balance issues, like if I'd switched to dual daggers, I'd have no way of spending willpower because all of my skills required rage. So generating rage bar auto attacks was impossible. Now auto attacks would be a fine choice, but soon it turned out to be a super dangerous way and could get me killed easily. So that build didn't really work. I haven't tried switching to a shield, but I don't see how that would help my survivability. Bows, on the other hand, felt super weak. Not enough skills with them, no crowd control to boost your survivability, no extra dashes, nothing. So it felt unplayable as well. I just couldn't see how bows can be even comparable to other builds. So yeah, to me it seemed a class with dagger or sword and a catalyst to be far superior to any other one. So that's strike 1. The strike 2 was that I was one-shotting everything and I haven't done any extra farming along the way. I just breezed through the levels, so the game was simply not providing enough challenge. Hell, at times I was just smashing buttons, like literally. I was clueless which skill I was using as long as I used something. The difference in damage output between auto attacks and skills, it's just ridiculous. Now, the upside of this, so that I don't sound too gloomy, is that actually the balancing right now seems to be an issue of numbers rather than anything else. Apart from the bow stuff where you don't have enough skills or a variety of skills, the issue can be solved with tweaked monster health numbers as well as your damage numbers. How am I certain of this? Because the only time that I was like a level or two behind the monsters, it immediately became a differently paced game. I was no longer one-shotting everything and was forced to think how to play at least somewhat optimally. So I suppose it's not that big of a deal looking into the future, but there is a possibility this turns out like a Diablo 3. A fireworks fiesta where you just mash all your buttons, ignore auto attacks in between skills and auto attack cancels, yada yada yada, all that micromanagement stuff. And while it will be fun for a while, it will get boring soon if no proper challenge is presented. I guess there's a third part to the balance issue, which is leveling too fast for my taste. I was breezing through levels, I was leveling up my skills way too fast. Like, the developers promised that you would level your skills up based on how much you use them, as well as having the option of purchasing higher skill levels. I haven't purchased a single time, and I was leveling those skills while not even using them, which got me completely baffled. How the fuck does that even work? But yeah, this is something that can easily go either way when the full game is released. Maybe since it's in beta, they're giving us more talent points, more stats per level, more experience per monster, just so that everyone would finish Act 1 fast and report as many bugs as possible, provide as much feedback as they can. Maybe. I'm not too positive about this, but it may be the case. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. And to be honest, that's kind of it for the main cons. With that said, I think there are a few topics that need to be touched, but I wouldn't list them as a con or as a pro. So let's do a middle section of things that just are, and it's up to personal taste. Design and graphics. Personally, I enjoy them, not as much though as in the previous beta. The areas in Act 1 are rather gloomy, so when at the start of the year I was praising the graphics and saying just take a look at how gorgeous this area is, I can no longer say that, but it might very well be the issue that the areas I loved will appear in Act 2. Other random effects like when you swing your dagger, how the skills appear, how monsters die, yeah, they're pretty good, they feel impactful, you know, you feel like you're actually using a skill, not just auto-attacking. They'll also be returning different attack animations for different staves, so when you have a cold damage based stave, you'll be attacking in a different pattern than with a, let's say, fire stave, which was something I enjoyed tremendously in the previous beta and probably listed as the biggest upside of the game. Other than that, I enjoyed most of the animations, so I'll leave it to you to decide when watching this footage. You can definitely get better graphics, by the way, when playing, because I just somehow can't get the best quality when recording or streaming despite having a pretty high-end PC. Turns out I'm pretty computer illiterate these days. Fuck, I'm old. Anyway, let's move on to the happy part of the video, the pros. In short, I came up with 5. Willpower versus rage system if done right, monster skills, boss fights, story, and personalizing skills. So let's start with willpower versus rage system. If done right, and I know I'm repeating myself, but if done right, it can be absolutely fascinating system. It can force you to think a few steps ahead, have constantly changing rotations. It did work that way a few times while I was playing, but typically not for long. Since you can only have 5 skill slots at a time, you really have to think which ones you want to include. So the best combo I picked was a double crowd control. One spending rage, one spending willpower. Then a spammable rage skill for purely DPS, and one spammable skill using willpowers to generate more rage. The last skill I picked was a ranged AoE attack with massive damage but a long reload time. So what I would do is use my long range AoE attack. Then I would dash in with my normal attack. Freeze everything with my willpower skill. Then by that time I would have some rage generated and I would spend it through my spammable rage skill. Then if needed I would crowd control with my remaining rage skill. Maybe auto attack a bit. And then back off while spamming my willpower skill to generate rage again. And this is a fun, complicated combo. This is a fun rotation, because there's definitely some room to fuck up massively, and you're not doing the same thing all the time, like dash in, hit, and go to the next pack. It doesn't get boring, or at least as fast. So really loved it, but the problem here is that I couldn't get another as fun combo as this one. It only worked when I was using a dagger and a catalyst. I can see this working with saves, maybe on paper at least, where you attack from a distance, once they come closer you crowd control, then blink out, and then auto attack to generate willpower. It sounds fun on paper, I tried to do it in practice, something was too wonky about how those skills work, like the clunkiness factor came in and I just couldn't execute it properly. Regardless, for purely melee or ranged builds, I don't see this working. The only way to generate rage is with auto attacks, and they are so underpowered compared to skills, it's just crazy. It's not even on the same level. But once again, if done right, this system can be amazing. It can make the game, like literally make the game alone. I was so fascinated in the cases where I had proper combination of skills working and felt like the game was forcing me to think which skill I want to be using next and whether I'm generating enough resources, whether it's rage or willpower. I'm not doing justice right now describing the system by how pleased I was when the system was working. It was truly more interesting than any other action RPG or hell, any other action game I've ever played. That's how much I enjoyed this system. Now, leaving this on the side, the other thing I wanted to touch, and I enjoyed quite a bit, is actually a thing I criticized heavily at the start of the year. which is monster skills, or monster mechanics maybe. Basically the uniqueness of each monster, their attack patterns, their attack modifications. This time, it felt like a lot of them have something. You have some guys pouncing towards you, you have some guys freezing you, some making a zone where you can barely move. It's fascinating. This provides some terrific micro mechanics challenge, so definitely love this part of the game. Now, boss fights, love them. Every one of them. I would literally shout in excitement during my streams when fighting a boss. I loved it in the previous beta and I love it now. It's challenging, they have unique mechanics, they hit hard, it makes you feel like fighting an actual boss. So yeah, I can only say good things about boss fights. Next up we have personalized skills, so just like in say Diablo 3, you can change and tweak your skills as you use a specific skill more, it levels up like a separate character. And every few levels or something you get to pick a rune to change it or improve it. The quirk that I enjoyed in particular here is that you can pick more than one rune for a skill, which in turn enables some interesting combinations. Some of the runes are simple as fuck, increase damage, reduce cost, but others change the skill completely, increase the size of the blade, make it follow your cursor, and so on and so forth. It does say a lot about the developer's approach to the game. You can customize a lot, classless system with massive talent point trees where a lot of the talents are weird as fuck, you know, not your standard more damage, more crit, but also like generate more stamina points when low on health. And same with skills, lots of customization to truly find your own combo that you enjoy the most. So I think the interesting point over here is the fact that you can expect to have quite a bit of depth in Wolcen. Now for the last pro, I picked the one which to me personally, and I can't stretch this enough, personally, I name it #1 thing about Wolcen. And when it's released, even if it's like Diablo 3 or Path of Exile Fireworks Fiesta, which I cannot stand, I just cannot, I'll still make the entire Wolcen playthrough on the story mode. The story is magnificent. Loved it, loved it, loved it, every bit of it. Now I won't spoil it because that would kind of beat the purpose of me praising it, but in a nutshell, just for you to get a glimpse of what kind of story it is, it's not your standard hero has appeared and it has to slay all evil to save the world. Fuck that shit. While the intro cinematic will seem that way, but immediately after the story takes a quick turn with a few interacting plot lines where you're kind of following the big picture, but you're also completely unsure what's going to happen next, what's causing this and that. I absolutely love it when you have a number of different characters in the game, and it's not only about the main character, where the other ones are just completely meaningless. No, they did reappear a couple of times. Now, I'm not gonna go further because I feel like I would start spoiling the whole story, so I'll just leave it with this. Absolutely loved every bit of it. And this is how I would like to conclude this overview. To sum things up, massively conflicted feelings about Wolcen. It has clear upsides like the story, the amazing story. The monster effects, the personalization and customization is definitely there. The willpower rage mechanic can be done well at times, but they also need to polish a lot of things like balancing. Dear God, that's just awful right now. Clunkiness and a better progression in terms of leveling, in terms of items, I think. Again, the only reason you should buy this game is if you want to support the developers, you like where the game is going. I can easily see this game turning into Diablo 3 at this point, or quite the opposite, Diablo 2. Which are both completely different games from the pacing perspective, so I'm just gonna stay open-minded and continue trying this game when more content is released, if only for the story. Fucking love the story, man, it's a spectacular one. I think the next massive content update is happening in like January or February, so it's not too far away. But yeah, that's it for this video. Hope you folks found it informative and all that, and yeah, many thanks for watching, guys. I hope you all have a lovely day, and of course, see you guys in the comment section. Cheers! Hey, this sounds just like you smashing that subscribe button after seeing this video.